Hey again, everyone. Fall in for another episode of Tactical Plastic Report, where I talk about Army Men, a game of tactical plastic. Since we are approaching the end of the year, and we are getting to the time where folks are usually wrapping up what they've been doing and or starting their very late Christmas shopping, I figured that I would take a moment and just open the door, pull back the curtain, and let folks know how I'm doing on the goals I had for Army Men that I talked about earlier this year. For folks who didn't see it, this is the first year I have made a video on the channel detailing the goals I had as a writer, RPG creator, etc. for this year, and I've been trying to stick to at least some of them. For folks who did not watch that video, though, I highly recommend you go check it out if for no other reason we love views around here. My first goal is one that I made about a month or two ago. I finally have 200 plus RPG titles with my name on them available on DriveThruRPG right now. So if you're curious as to what all it is I put out, just type my name in and see what comes up. I guarantee you will find something that appeals to you. And for those who are curious, not a single one of them was written with any use of AI. It took me about 12 years to put all these out, so you can achieve big numbers if you put in the time and the energy over time. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Because I had two more goals that I have not achieved by the end of this year so far. The first was I wanted to release a mission module for every country in the Army Men setting, as well as one for the Plastos Federation as a whole. Unfortunately, it is unlikely I will be able to make that goal by the end of the year. I currently have 2, I need 5. And quite honestly, it's one of those of there just aren't enough hours in the day and you have to pick which projects will actually pay the bills. And these ones did not come up for this year. Hopefully that changes for next year. I would like to get back to some of them. I have plots, I have notes, I have things. I just need to find the artwork and I need to find the time. Which runs into our second goal that we could still achieve by the end of the year, but I'm going to need your guys' help to make this happen. In short, I had the goal of I wanted Army Men to reach silver status on DriveThruRPG. For those who are not familiar with the medals, you don't really know what that means. When a game or a supplement or whatever sells a certain amount of stuff on DriveThruRPG or one of its associated websites for one bookshelf, it earns a medal, METAL, because they're named after various metals you find in fantasy RPGs. Copper, silver, gold, electrum, platinum, and I think adamantine's the highest. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mithril's in there somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it lays, but earlier this year, Army Men hit copper, which means that it had sold at least 51 copies of the base book, which I thought was pretty great because according to some of the numbers that I've seen, they might be outdated by now. As much as 80% of stuff that goes up on DriveThruRPG doesn't even hit that level. However, silver is when you hit at least 101 copies. Now I went and did some digging before I put this video together, and I made sure I had accurate numbers for how well the book has done. Outside of all the copies we moved from the Kickstarter and from the backer kit, we have sold 88 copies through DriveThruRPG since it released. Now, that means we need at least 13 more copies sold before we hit silver status. So if there's at least 13 folks out there, you've been thinking about getting this book, you're not entirely sure you wanted to give it a roll, but maybe you want to treat yourself a little bit this holiday season. You want to try a new game, you want to do something fun, you want to get the family around after you're all done opening presents and build some characters. Especially if you also want to get everybody some little plastic Army Men to go with it, and a couple of cheap toys to just really make it fun. Just play through the holiday madness and all of the mess that's in the living room as your game board. This is the time to do that. And I say this not just because I like making more sales is always good for me and it makes my games look better. There was an additional goal attached to that if we hit silver status. I told everybody that I would put together a live play of one of the mission modules for Army Men. I would get my group together, I'd figure out how to film it, and it would go up here on the Azukail Games channel. This is not something I've ever done before. It would take me a bit of time to figure out the technical logistics. However, if you all are willing to help me meet this goal, I am willing to hold up my end of that agreement. So, if that's something you're interested in, I do have another request. Not just buy the game, share it with your friends, play it. However, there are, as I mentioned, 3 mission modules out, 1 in the base book and 2 that have been released since then. My question for you is, if we meet the goal, if I put my group together and we, play a game for all of you to watch to really just give you a sense of how these missions go. Which one would you like to see? In the base book, we have Foxtrot Brigade Missing in Action. This is a game where you and your squad are essentially tasked with finding a commanding officer who was supposed to come and watch all of you on parade. He was supposed to evaluate you, and he's gone missing somewhere between where he was coming from and his arrival here at Fort Foxtrot. That noise you heard is folks who got why I named it that. The second module that I put together was A Night at Brecken's Beacon. This is when an entire squad who was just out on maneuvers has vanished. No one knows where they are. They're somewhere out in the countryside. You and your squad are tasked with going over the rough terrain and finding out what happened to them. I'm not going to spoil it, but it was a thing, and this is one of those missions that if you play it, your actions are time sensitive. How much you dilly-dally will depend on the end result. The third one that I wrote was Assault on Outpost 13, where your squad has been tasked with going to Outpost 13 to reinforce someone who has taken a powerful gang member, well, hostage essentially, and they're going to hand them over to the police. But corruption runs rampant, and the gangs want their man back. Your presence is what's going to determine whether or not they get him, but also whether or not the corruption that runs rampant through parts of the city are going to be found out. So, 2 missing persons and a bit of a murder mystery. Which of those 3 really sounds fun to you? What would you like to see do? And do you want to see entirely new characters, or would you like to see characters from the upcoming Boots on the Ground put on the field and actually portrayed by folks? So this, the latter would give you the ability to see people play, iconic characters, and then you could decide whether or not you want to grab that for your group as well, and that way you could all play through the adventures of that particular squad. But anyway, that was my update for this week. I'm still tinkering on a bunch of other stuff behind the scenes. I have some plans for future Army Men supplements over and above the mission modules that I really need to finish fleshing out. And hopefully I can drag you all along for the ride, and we'll all have a bit of fun in the new year. But you'll probably see my face between now and then. If you don't, I hope everyone has a great holiday. I hope you enjoy time with your family, your friends, play some great games, and if I'm lucky, maybe Army Men will be among them. But anyway, as usual, if you have something you want to see in future videos, if you have questions you want answered, please leave those down in the comments below. And make sure that you like, share, subscribe, all those things so that I can keep the channel going and keep making content just like this. So until then, fall out and have a great day gaming, everyone.